Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to just cover some of the basics of what REST APIs and Sisense are so that we can really get to explaining what actually is PySense. So let's start with REST. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. So Sisense server and the Sisense web client communicate via REST. Whenever a button is clicked or something is activated on the web client, what happens is the web client makes a REST call to the Sisense server. These REST calls generally come in one of four forms. Either there's a GET, in case we want to retrieve information. So for example, if we wanted to retrieve all of our users or retrieve all of our dashboards. There's a patch, which means modifying information. So where you might see this is in a connection, right? In a connection, we might just want to edit one attribute of an existing connection. So we can do that with a patch call. There's also a post, which just allows us to add more information. So if we wanted to add a new dashboard. And then there's delete, which allows us to delete information. So say deleting a user. So that's the basics of REST. It basically allows a remote client to control or manipulate or query data from a local server. So what is PySense? PySense is a Python software development kit, often shorted to SDK, for Sisense. So you can install it via pip, which just means you open up your terminal in Python and you type in pip install PySense SDK, and you will have the library installed. Make sure it's PySense SDK. There is a PySense project in pip that is not related to this. And then to use it, you'll just do in your Python script from PySense, import PySense, and you'll be able to use it. So what PySense does is it wraps around the Sisense REST API to allow you to access the API with Python. And what this means is if you look at the actual REST API, it can be relatively complicated. You have to know, various aspects of your cube in order to query things, or you have to know aspects of the roles in order to do things with them. And you have to track all of your login information and your bearer keys. So what PySense does is it wraps that all up and it makes that code much easier to write, much simpler, much quicker. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the reference materials that you can use. Primarily, you're going to be using GitHub. So GitHub is where the PySense project is located. You'll see the link here. This includes the Python source code for PySense. You can always look at the source code, see exactly what's going on underneath the surface. It is an open source project. You can see usage snippets that might show you little examples of how to do things. There are additional tutorials, including the documentation for this. There will also be documentation on PySense overall, so documentation for all of the methods that PySense implements. There were also going to be sample scripts of how to do basic things like, query a Elastic Cube and get the results back as a CSV, or see how many cubes are being used by how many dashboards. And then there's also a README, which includes the changelog. PySense is frequently updated in order to keep track with our customers' needs and with the growing abilities of Sisense. So, always keep an eye on that to see if there's any new or breaking functionality. So with that said, these are the last of the introductory videos. After this, we'll actually be diving in, writing some Python code, and actually building out a bunch of automation tools for ourselves or our clients or whatever you want to do this for. Stay tuned. Thanks.